There we are. I don't know if there's a lot of streaming going on right now that just streamed that for a while there without me on, but I didn't get it over there on wasn't streaming over to YouTube. So, hi, this is Dr. Annette Feravich, and we are here with the Critical Thinking Classroom. Half an hour late. I changed the schedule, and then I don't even remember what the schedule is half the time. So I was sitting here, waiting for TikTok, not TikTok, not that TikTok, clock, TikTok, keep going. And then I realized, what? So we're here for an hour. So we're going to be here from 11 to 12 o'clock. So that's our schedule for this. But I think I'm going to try and keep it. We'll see. We'll see what I do. Since I have a million people here, I know that you're on the edge of your seats for waiting for me for the last 15 minutes. But we're here on day 9 of the classroom, and this is Dr. Annette Feravich. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about differences between, I wanted to put that up there too. I am going to put that up there so that people have this nice little screen over here with our quote from Robert F. Kennedy. But what are we talking about today? Today we are talking about health and happiness. So we're continuing on our critical thinking classroom on what makes us happy. And that is the number one need that we basically have, number one desire that we list time and time again. If it's on the list, it far surpasses any other value that we have. That's what I've come to note. Maybe different in other countries. And in fact, I'm quite sure it is different in other countries, but not a lot different. And as other countries become more westernized, the more that they care about their happiness as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to keep wrapping our brain around what we're talking about here. So happiness versus joy. And where we left off here was the idea that we had traditional measures for happiness. I'm calling them traditional measures because we never really, as scientists, studied happiness until like the last 40 years. We've started studying, and really it seems like I can't believe it's been 40 years because it seems like the research, when you think about it, really just isn't just, we should be doused in research on what makes people happy, right? Not doused in research on, the science that misinforms people and says this will work and it will cure this and it doesn't. And then you're left with all kinds of leaky gut and burn holes in your chest and everything else. So we need to be healthier in a different way because we can't count on our food supply. We can't count on our soil being healthy for us. We can't count on pharmaceuticals being healthy for us, right? We have the whole opioid crisis to demonstrate that, right? And I have said it makes me angry to the core. We used to have the addicts used to be 19-year-old men. And now we have mothers of young children that they have gotten addicted because the money that they make apparently isn't enough for them, right? Or it just hasn't gotten to the other criminals, and so they want their piece of the pie. Criminals, medical industry institution is being run by criminals, and we know it, which doesn't make me happy. But we're talking about happiness. So let's continue on with our authentic happiness, all right? So we call this authentic happiness because we're trying to get to true happiness, not this fleeting kind of happiness, right? Okay, so, and there's our measure of happiness, and we left off talking about this study, which was the Nun study. Now, I'm gonna just pause for a minute as I make sure that we have an understanding, just a little bit of why this was such an important study. It's not just the outcomes that we found where people who were more cheerful lived longer, but that was an extraordinary finding. But part of the methodology, the method that they used, I don't want to use big words like that, the method that they used was really an outstanding method because they used nuns. And if you remember, what we understand is that they all have a similar lifestyle. So a lot of times we study as a scientist, people in the general population, of course. But we see many, many differences in the general population, right? I'm a woman, there are men. So that's a gender difference that we see. I'm older, we study younger people. That's an age difference that we see. Um, I have Mexican heritage. Other people have different heritages. That's a race or ethnicity difference that we see, right? Okay, so those are obvious differences. They may or may not make differences in our choices. I mean, men, women, old, young, all have need for food, all have need for love, all want relationships, those kinds of things, right? So in many ways, because we're human beings, we're the same. But if somebody said we're all the same, they would think, yeah, you're kind of a nut. No, we're not all the same, right? So when we study people, it's really to find differences between groups. It's a great idea if those two groups that we separate, we create from, are almost like one group, right? They are homogeneous is what we call them. They're the same. They're very, very similar. We want that group to be very similar. And then we divide that group and we do something to one group that we didn't do to the other group. All right. Or whatever. So here we've got more cheerful, most cheerful, least cheerful, right? Same group. Now we divide, right, of nuns. Then we divided them into our two groups that we can compare. Why is this such a good study? Because this group is so much alike in so many ways, much more than the general public. If I went out to the general public and I said, here's my group, right, that I want to study. Now I'm going to divide them into these two groups that I can compare, right? That group is very different a lot of times, right? Depending on where we get them from. We might get them from the same place, so they're not as different. But if we got them across the globe, they could be very different, right? So here's where we want to try and keep our big group that we're studying the same. So when we separate them into two groups, it's going to be the difference that we're looking at here, cheerfulness. That's going to make the difference, not anything else like personality, background, education, race, right? All of those things. No, because we've got this group that's so similar. So that's why that was a good study. And so now we're beginning to see, and this is the main point. We could say, I want to be happy because I want to be happy, right? But no, we want to be happy because we want to be healthy. We want to be healthy. And that's what we're seeing. So here was another study. I love this study. These are studies that I present in my positive psychology class. So these studies here, this study here is a Mills study is what it is. So they call it the Mills College study is what they call it, from Harker and Keltner. And they did this study also in 2001. And you can see there that the participants were 141 women who were graduates from Mill College. Apparently they couldn't get enough men to smile, but women, you say, put a pretty smile on your face and she'll do it, doggone it. So we can see there, I have those two pictures up there, and it's purposeful. Those two pictures are very, very purposeful. So the very first one is a picture from Mills College yearbook from 1960. So that was a picture that I am using that was actually an image available from this Mills College study. And it demonstrates very clearly the differences in people's smiles that we see in their pictures, right? What kind of smiler were you in your school picture? Were you a non-smiler? Were you a smirker, right? Or were you full teeth grin like we see in this picture, right? Were you just ready for your picture? And so the two groups, right? So we have one big group, Mills College women, 141. Now we are comparing the two groups, all right? What are the two groups that we're comparing? We have all these 141. We're dividing them. How are we dividing them? In similar ways as the other study. The other study was most cheerful, least cheerful based on their autobiographies. This, most cheerful in a way, least cheerful, they called it something different. Same concept. Most cheerful, least cheerful based on what? Their smiles. There are smiles in the yearbook. So here we've got the big group of Mills College women, right? And now we're dividing them into two separate groups, those with big smiles and those without big smiles. And what are we calling them? There's actually technical names for those smiles. One is called a Pan Am smile. Pan Am. And you want to know how they got the Pan Am smile name? From Pan Am Airlines and stewardesses that had the full teeth, white, glistening, trident smile, right? So, big full face smile. That was one group. So they looked at the pictures and they coded them is what they did. And they coded them as what they call genuine smiles. So full genuine, I'm not faking it, right? Versus Duchenne smiles. And Duchenne smiles are, say cheese, cheese. There's a Duchenne smile, right? Cheese. Okay, don't stop the camera on that. That's not a very nice picture. Look at the difference there. Look at the difference in the pictures there. And this is the picture that I just love. And why aren't we studying the joy in little children? Because that joy is off the charts. Joy in little kids is off the charts. They can't even control their bodies. They get so excited. Think about, and that's why I have that other picture there, right? The smile that a child gives when they see their mother. And right? So especially if, they hadn't had a good whatever, right? No, not a good day. They would cry when they saw their mother, right? That's the emotion that these little kids have. Why aren't we studying that? What is that? Could you imagine if you could get that? Could you imagine if today, you might look a little ridiculous, like, right? But if you could get that today, that kind of joy that just makes your whole body want to burst with happiness, joy, right? We're not talking about pleasure. We're talking about joy. Like a little kid when their mom walks through the door after a long day, right? At the babysitter or whatever it is, right? That joy that child, and if your child doesn't have that joy, start looking at some attachment videos. Seriously, I've got a whole series on attachment. Law of attachment. There's an attachment video out there. Yeah, you need to see attachment. If your child, and it's okay. No, it's not okay. It needs to be fixed. If your child doesn't act like that when you walk through the room, it needs to be fixed. There's a problem there. There actually is a problem there, and you need to know what it is, because that's the natural reaction that a child should have when their mother enters the room. That's a natural reaction. It shows that there is a healthy attachment between mother and child. Attachments can be fixed. If you don't have a healthy attachment, and I'm already an adult. There was no attachment when I was a kid. Now what am I supposed to do? You can fix that. There are fixes to help you become and learn about healthy attachment. And it doesn't mean you get reattached to your parents in a healthy way. That's not what it means. It means that you look for healthy attachment relationships. Okay? So your child should react that way. And if you don't have any children, look for that. You should be encouraging a nurturing relationship with your child that motivates your child to look like that when you walk through the door. My boys did. And not always. So, the difference in smiles is indicating what we're talking about here is a real difference in real happiness, in feelings of joy, that a person who exhibits a genuine full-faced smile. So that's what we're looking at, a full-faced smile. So this, cheese, it's got my lips and some of my cheeks, right? If you're just like this, not even the other cheek, right? Not even the other cheek that you've got going on there. So full face smile engages your lips, engages your cheeks, engages your eyes, and your eyebrows, right? Look at that. Look at that full face smile. Your nose is scrunched up. Think about when you have a hearty laugh. It engages your whole face, right? So I can tell the genuineness, genuineness of your smile. I can tell how genuine your smile is on whether or not it's a full face smile, right? Now, there could be all kinds of reasons. It doesn't really matter, right? There can be all kinds of reasons why somebody doesn't have a full face smile. It really doesn't really matter. These are all probabilities, right? It doesn't mean that everyone who didn't have a full face smile is doomed to these outcomes. But let's take a look at the outcomes they might be doomed to. All right, so we have got the photo groups. So we took the photos. They took a look at the photos. Note that this study was done in 2001. So they are looking at photos from the 1960s. So what this is a historical research study. It's looking at data that's in history already. And then the data from the 1960s that they are looking at and reporting on in 2001 are, as you can see, they're divided up into the photo groups, genuine smiles or Pan Am smile. That's not right. That's Duchenne smile. Darn it. Darn it, darn it, darn it. Pan Am smiles, where'd they get them from? That's a genuine smile. The genuine smile is a Pan Am smile. I make these changes on there and in the half an hour that I have in between the classes, and then that's what ends up happening. So I'll get that changed. So a Pan Am smile has come from the Pan Am stewardesses on the Pan Am airline, which we don't have Pan Am Airlines anymore, but they were the most famous stewardesses, and they advertise our stewardesses are something else. You had to fit a certain size to be a stewardess. You had to have a certain look to be a stewardess. Usually blonde, right? So, and have that full face smile. So that's a genuine smile, even though Pan Am the stewardesses probably did not. And we called them stewardesses at the time, right? As opposed to flight attendants. So I'm clarifying that. And notice the language change that we have to be, astute to, right? Yeah, we used to call them stewardesses, and that's the reason why I'm referring to them as stewardesses, to fill that stereotype that we used to have of stewardesses, of flight attendants, all women, mostly blonde, voluptuous, skinny. Yeah, traveling men. What are they looking for? Okay, the other smile is a Duchenne smile. Duchenne smile is a forced smile. I put in Pan Am up there. That's not it. It's Duchenne smile. It's a forced smile. Okay, so that's what they did. They coded these as forced smile or Pan Am smile, genuine smile. All right, and so let's take a look at if we have any other errors in the data. So they measured the outcome. So they divided them into groups, and then they measured all the groups on these variables. And note that this was what we call a longitudinal study, a long study, fancy name, long name, longitudinal study. It's a long study is what we did. Over time, we measured at least 2 points in time, not just 1 point in time. And here we have 4 points in time actually at 3 points in time at ages 27, 43, and 52. They followed them up, okay? And they took measures of their happiness, their satisfaction in life. Remember, the satisfaction in life scale actually is this scale right here. So that is the scale that these women took as they followed them along through these ages, all right? Okay, so first time at 27, so next at 43, and then at 52. Satisfaction with life scale. Marriage, they looked at whether or not they were married and how happy they were in their marriages. And then they also looked at health outcomes. And then we can see there at the bottom, what were those final results of those studies. All right. Let's go over that. So the final results ended up being that they saw greater likelihood of stable and happy marriages in the results for genuine smiles, right? So greater likelihood of stable and happy marriages versus being single or divorced. Okay, just from a smile. Just from a smile. A genuine smile. Not a lot different than taking autobiographies and hearing the happiness in the autobiographies, right? Just an autobiography, just a smile. Higher personal well-being, satisfaction, and happiness rating. So on the happiness scale, on the satisfaction with life scale, these individuals are scoring higher when they had just a genuine smile. And then the last one there, lower negative emotionality, higher competence, and greater affiliation with others. Now, those are really, really big deals, aren't they? Higher competence. If I'm more competent, I look it and I also feel it. I feel confident. When I am competent, I look it, but I also feel it. How do I know that you look it? How do I know that you look confident? How do I know that? Because as a psychologist, we studied traits that we notice the fastest. The fastest traits that we notice just like that, right? And it even comes faster, or at least, no, not faster. It's not faster, but it's at least, it's some of the fastest things that we notice about people. In about 1 to 3 milliseconds, we notice this. Other things we might notice faster: gender and not race, because it's very difficult to tell race, and age. Gender and age we notice faster, so those are written in our DNA. We want to know gender and we want to know age. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So all of this confusion that we are creating about gender identity makes it very difficult, chaotic, confusing for us in our DNA, in our natural assumptions about individuals. It's a very natural, written in our DNA. Why? Totally makes sense. Why? Why would it be written in my DNA that I recognize gender first and then age? I'm asking gender first. I'm not saying that we notice it first. We could easily notice an old person just as quickly, right? Why is it important that it's written in our DNA that we notice gender? Well, of course, hello, we're looking to reproduce. That's the reason why. And it's not in our interest as a human being to have to decipher whether or not I can reproduce with that individual. Think about it. I said to my students when all of this really started beginning, and I was just single at the time, the last thing I want to do is sit across a person that I'm on a date with and wonder what gender they are. That is the last thing I want to do. There's a whole bunch of things I'm going to be wondering about you when I'm on a date with you. But the last thing I want to wonder about is your gender. I don't care. What I mean is I don't care if you say, well, gender shouldn't matter, Annette, or if you like that person, what does gender matter? BS, it's written in my DNA. Forget about it. It's written in my DNA, and I don't want to have to figure it out. No, I should know that it's written in my DNA, okay? All right, let's get off the gender kick over here. All right, so we are noticing these things. Where did I leave off on those results? Yeah, that's where I left off. Thanks, mind in memory. So competent. So we notice gender and we notice age. And those we notice relatively quickly. Race takes us longer. Race is not innate in us to notice, although we do notice it at very, very young ages. It's not necessary for survival. It's not. We know that because it's too difficult to tell race, right? It's too difficult to tell somebody's race. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. So it must not be necessary for survival, right? Despite what that alt-right wants you to think, okay? It's going to keep infiltrating into whatever I'm saying. Okay, so, yeah. Yes, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. And your hate for the Jewish community has no place in this country at all. None. No place at all in this country. And I'm speaking to people I know personally who I have noticed erupted in this scene, this alt-right scene, which is just Abhorrent. I use that word too much. All right, I've been using it too much. Okay, so finish your thought, Annette. What are the two things that we look for, that we notice almost as quickly as gender and age? Look out, it's big. Hold on, what do you think it is? You have a guess? You don't know. You don't know. I wouldn't have known if I didn't, do the research. I wouldn't have guessed. Trust, trustworthiness, and I already said it, competence. And competence. So maybe you did guess that one, right? Trustworthiness and competence. Those are the things we know within 1 to 3 milliseconds about another person. Trust, what? Open body posture. Eyes, they're bright. Smile on your face. Everything about you is open, okay? That demonstrates trust. We know whether you're trustworthy or not. Just like that. Isn't that interesting how well our minds work? And they're trying to screw up your minds with all of their medication crap is what they're trying to do. Because our minds without it are sharp. And they don't want our minds to be so sharp, do they? No, they do not. That's why I'm here. Okay, the other one? Competence. Competence. What do we see? This is what we see. That's what we see. This is what we see. Right? That's what we see. We recognize it. We recognize status is what we do. But status isn't going to serve me all the time, right? Especially if I'm not in the right status. So I better notice something else. I notice status. Now I know how to behave in front of you, right? Subservient, dominant, authoritarian, argument, whatever, right? I know how to behave towards you. You're competent. But the other thing I need to know is you may be competent, but are you trustworthy? What if you're competent and not trustworthy? What group of people is that? We already know the group of people. Actually, you're talking about white men, leaders, white men. Those are the people who are competent that we don't trust, right? Competent people, and we do trust them, right? Minorities in power. Competent, and we do trust them more often than not. Minorities in power. They represent me, right? Women. How about women, right? And then get a woman who's competent and trustworthy, and you've got a presidential candidate. Okay. So, lower negative emotionality. So this is, I am emotionally stable. And oh, by the way, if you didn't hear what I had to say about that alt-right group and about what they were from Web of Make-Believe and that episode of I Am Not a Nazi, we have for far too long, and I can't change it. I can't change it. It's just ingrained in us to see women as the more emotional sex, right? Simply not true. It's just simply not true. The way that the scientists, the male white scientists took a look at that was they took a look at so your opinion is that women are more emotional. Okay, that's good information. Subjective, but it's still good. Everyone believes women are more emotional. Why? Because of the emotions that they experience, which are typically seen as emotions that less competent individuals have, right? Like sad or depression or anxiety or fear, cry more often, right? Are moved to tears, are nurturing and loving and caring. Those are all the emotions that they pin on women, which is fine. You give me those emotions. I want your crappy emotions. I want your crappy ass emotions. I don't, right? So then go into whatever it was that I had there. I don't think I have my piece of paper over here. I don't, but go into about an hour into that video, I Am Not a Nazi, and we'll see who the emotional sex is. Oh, you alt-right people, you're just like a bunch of crybabies is what you are. You are just so filled with emotion. And men, you are the worst. You're the worst. You are screaming about this injustice and that injustice as you just lay waste. As you lay waste. Injustice is falling all over the place and you're weeping about that. You don't weep about it. You don't weep, but I'm going to call it weeping because it's just as emotional. You are in a tirade, an uncontrolled tirade. And I see this from those angry men all the time, all the time. Even if you're not alt-right, even if you're not alt-right. I see it from atheists, male, white atheist, angry. You have such great beliefs. Why are you so angry about your beliefs? Why are you so angry? I know why you're angry. Somebody did something to you. That's why you're angry. And that's why you have warped ideas. Okay, so negative emotionality, not just simply of women, although we did study women, didn't we? Higher competence and greater affiliation with others. Greater, better relationships is what they're saying. Also, they studied women, right? They probably studied women. Why do you suppose they studied women? Why do you suppose they studied women? So 141 women from Mills College, and they looked at their high school graduation pictures. Why do you suppose women? Because they probably couldn't find enough men who had anything close to a genuine smile. Isn't that interesting? And this is just much more food for research, isn't it? Gender differences in the health outcomes in those pictures. How about in those pictures right there? Go back to that yearbook and go find. Oh, Mills College might have been an all-women's college. Could have been. Could have been. Yeah. Go back to pictures in 1960 from a local college, a nearby college. Do the same thing. Do exactly the same thing. May have been done. I'm not sure. I use the research I like. And they're not giving me access to the research at Oakland University. So, all right. Now what I want to talk about is so we are trying to understand how we get to be happy, right? How we get to be happy. And the big thing for me in understanding this is trying to distinguish the difference between joy and happiness. So when we talk about individuals with that Duchenne smile versus a Pan Am smile, what is the research theoretically trying to get at? Theoretically, the theory is a full face smile has more joy inside of them, more real happiness inside of them than somebody who doesn't have a full face smile, right? Okay, so now we're starting to examine. I don't know that person has real joy as opposed to happiness, but there are indicators, right? And also, think about it. If I have to ask somebody, right? If I'm asking you, and let's say you even know, let's say that you even know why I'm asking you. Let's say that you even know the study that I'm planning to do. So you know I'm doing a study on happiness. Let's just say that you do, okay? What do you think you might do if I'm asking you questions? Or let's say that I'm asking you, you know that I'm doing a study on happiness and health. How might you answer those questions, right? So we're looking at we're calling them variables, other factors, other things that might indicate real joy compared to just fleeting happiness. Other things like a full-faced smile, like an autobiography, right? So that's why these studies are so magnificent. Now, when we talk about, in scientific terms, differences between happiness and joy, we call them hedonic happiness versus eudaimonic happiness, okay? Hedonic happiness versus eudaimonic happiness. Hedonic happiness, I'm going to go to the next slide so that we can discuss it a little bit. You can see, yeah, I'm going to talk about the slide next. You can see here that we've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I talked about this also in our philosophical class. I might have mentioned it here. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. I likely have mentioned it, but I don't believe that we've gone over this in detail. As far as I can remember, we haven't gone over it in detail in this critical thinking class. So let's go ahead and take a look at this chart that gives us the difference between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness. In fact, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to, that's fine that you saw that, but I'm going to bring it back over here. So what is authentic happiness? We have the pleasant life, we have the good life, and we have the meaningful life. As we talked, the pleasant life is talking about pleasures of the senses, right? We need those things to be authentically happy. We really do need the touch of somebody else. And actually, we have studies that demonstrate that we actually have to have the touch of somebody else, or we will die. We've got studies from orphans from Romania, and looked at the outcomes of these children who were never touched. And there's an ABC special on it. And I actually had a student who did a video on it as well, which was really an outstanding video the student did, who was from Romania and who was an orphan from Romania. So really, I'm going to tell you, that talk to me about the behaviors that we were talking about that these orphans exhibited because they had no physical touch. So clinging behaviors, clinging to others, clinging to a pillow, clinging literally to the bars that were on their cribs. All right. So clinging behaviors, rocking behaviors, right? Rocking behaviors. These are signs that there wasn't significant attachment, all right? And, you're like, we've got to take this information with open minds. Nobody is judging anybody else, right? You judge yourself. There's no judgment in my voice or in what I'm saying, okay? But if you have a child who's engaging in rocking behaviors and they're telling you that it's autism, certainly it is or something like that, right? Asperger's. If they're telling you it's something like that, that's fine. That's okay. They have to have their labels in order to understand what they are. But for your understanding, that actually could just be it may only be just some kind of separation. I'm talking above my high school kids a little bit. That can be a feeling of separation, anxiety due to some problems in separating that could have happened at a young age, could have happened at an older age, could have something to do with parental nurturing, could have nothing to do with it, could have something to do with something that happened at school as well. Rocking behaviors usually begin at a very, very early age. So if you're concerned about your child's rocking behaviors and concerned about diagnoses for autism, concerned about getting your child on pharmaceuticals that they insist they have to take for a lifetime because they're going to have it, how they could possibly know that. They don't. They don't. It's a big fat lie. They can't possibly know that you need that, and they never checked out behavioral changes. So if they tell you that your child needs autism medication for the rest of their life, they don't know. They're lying to you. All right? I'm telling you that. Or in particular, actually more so than that, ADHD. So certainly not ADHD medication for the rest of your life. There are great behavioral things that we can do that will help alleviate some of those repetitive behaviors that we see in these individuals. But because we see them at very young ages, we know that there might have been a problem in attachment or in separation anxiety, either one. If mom had to go to work, mom had to go to work, right? That's what men have done to our women. They made us work and look like men, and then they say, we hate you. Sorry, above high school. Not above high school. I'm going to tell you why. And the reason why it's not is because you are preparing for long-term relationships. So these are things you really want to consider. That's what this age group is about, preparing for long-term relationships, all right? And in doing so, you want to make sure that you are offering somebody health, right? A healthy mind, a healthy body, a healthy spirit, right? You are offering somebody else health, okay? They need your diligence, your longevity. They need your ability to overcome stress and obstacles and problems. They need all of that. And all that seems to come with the package of real, genuine happiness, okay? All right, so hedonic versus eudaimonic. Hedonic, we know, right? Hedonistic. So what are you talking about? You are talking about sensual pleasures. Hedonic pleasures, hedonic happiness, hedonism is all about the body, right? All about making sure that you're responding to your body's needs. And that's natural. It's very, very natural. It's very, very good, as long as it just doesn't become our greatest need, because we have two other needs that surpass our need for pleasure. Despite how much time we spend on acquiring things that satisfy our need for pleasure, it's not our greatest need. The other two combined are greater than the pleasure need, and these represent eudaimonic happiness. So the pleasure need represents hedonic happiness, and the other two, engagement and meaning and purpose, those represent eudaimonic, higher order needs. I'll get to the pyramid after I talk about now the study that I want to talk to you about health. And so these are about our immune system. This is a study that was done specifically to take a closer look at the immune systems between individuals who are hedonic and focus on their physical pleasures versus those that are considered eudaimonic and focus on those higher order pleasures. Okay? So in the first set, A, there, you can see it doesn't matter. These are CTRA gene composites. And so what these gene composites have to do is they just have to do with health and well-being, overall gene composites of health and well-being, including gene composites that have to do with our immune reaction. And that includes things like our inflammatory reactions, our immune response, and then levels of antibodies that are pushed out into our system that also helps attack those foreign invaders, right? Okay, so there are three responses of our immune system. The very first thing that occurs is inflammation. Now let's just stop for a minute and think about that, because we have all kinds of health problems that are due to inflammation. And in fact, every health problem that we have has an element of inflammation. Every health problem that we have. We're finding out that actually inflammation might be the number one problem that we have relative to health. But it's a natural body response. And so why is our body naturally responding in this inflammatory kind of way? Well, of course we know. I mean, many of us know why. Some people, many of you don't know why. Well, think about let's take the inflammation in the gut, right? Which leads to things like IBS and Crohn's disease. What about inflammation in the gut? Okay. Well, those are the diseases that are related to inflammation in the gut. And where does that come from? It comes from poor food sources, poor soil where we don't have our nutrients in the soil, and then poor diet as well. All right? Okay, so inflammation, that's an example of inflammation. We get inflammation in our gut and it leads to these diseases. We get inflammation in our joints and it leads to arthritis, right? So different forms of arthritis, osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, constant inflammation in our joints. Where's that coming from? Where is that coming from that our bodies are reacting in this way as if my body is constantly being invaded by these foreign entities, right? By this foreign matter. Why? Because it is. Because our body is constantly fighting what the food and drug industry keeps feeding us. We know that our numbers, as far as longevity goes and as far as our health goes, have gone down significantly. Well, if we have a bunch of bright scientists who are, working for the people, they know why our numbers have gone down. They know why, and they know then what to do about it. So if the numbers, all these numbers, right, sickness is going up, population going down, longevity going down, right? If all of these things are occurring, I'm telling you, they know the reason why they're occurring. And if they know the reason why they're occurring and they're still occurring, then they're doing nothing about it. And then that's purposeful. And we know it's purposeful. You're not hiding anything from us. We know what you're doing to our soil is purposeful. We know what you're doing to our vaccines is purposeful. We know what you're selling us is purposeful. We know what you're doing to our food and our seeds, putting poison around our seeds, Roundup, our seeds are wrapped in poison. Who's the genius who did that? It's not a genius who did that. It's a madman who did that. That's who did it. Get all these women over here who are popular women. Look at what the women did. Penicillin, right? Look at what the women did compared to the men. Okay, so we've got inflammation that we look for. Interferon. Interferon is a natural immunity that is boosted when we need it. Okay, so interferon has been studied for 50 years, looking for an immunity, and actually some supplements now replicate that interferon. The thing that I would be concerned about taking interferon if it's not needed. Now, I do. I take a form of interferon. I do. Not all the time, but I do. And I know it boosts my immunity. I know it does. I can feel it. And I'm going to tell you where I feel it. I feel it where I notice it is in my teeth, is where I notice it. So if I have any kind of an issue with my teeth, I'm getting older now, right? So, whatever. If I have any kind of a small issue with my teeth, I make sure I, brush better or whatever. But I take the interferon and it boosts up and helps me get rid of those kinds of infections, bacterial infections in particular. I know individuals who also take a form of interferon, and that helps them with bladder infections as well. So a form of interferon will help boost up your immunity. My concern that I wish was studied more is, does it also boost up your inflammation? And then that's not good, right? If our interferon is boosted, is our inflammation automatically boosted? I wanted to say something about inflammation. Why would that be? Why would that be that I'm assuming inflammation, right? Anytime our body is sick or injured, it's inflamed. It becomes inflamed. All right, so we're talking about inside our body. Why? Well, that's part of the repair system, right? So if I were to scratch, even right there, I'm waiting to see if it responds. I'm not scratching myself very hard though. But if I were to scratch myself hard enough there, and I'm probably getting close, what happens? You'll see it. And what will you see? You'll see a red mark there, right? Is what you'll see. The first thing that you'll see is a red mark where you got scratched, right? What's the red? Blood. Blood comes to the area. If there's more blood coming to the area, and that helps repair it, right? There are platelets in our blood that repair the injury. So we have blood that comes to a wound. If we need repair on the inside, guess what's going to happen? The same thing, right? So there's more blood to the area. And we can see it gets swelled up there too, right? If it were a good scratch there, right? If that were a good scratch there, and we're beginning to see it a little bit. If that were a good scratch there, what would happen? It'd be raised there, right? It'd be raised. Inflammation, swelling. So that's what happens whenever we have damage or injury to our body. All right. So it doesn't say that there's damage when I have interferon increase, right? It doesn't say that there's damage, but our bodies also remember, right? So if interferon is sent out, maybe platelets are also sent out automatically. I don't know. I'm not sure. Things to think about, right? In our critical thinking classroom. And then the last one there that I have there circled is antibodies. Now let's take a close-up look. So antibodies, these are our natural immune response as well. So interferon, a natural immune response, helps take care of bacteria. But antibodies actually go out there and just basically Pac-Man in all different kinds of ways can eat up those foreign invaders. All right. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about antibodies. They surround them, they chew them up, they spit them out, they inject them, whatever. That's our antibodies. Let's take a look at this. So in the very first chart there, bar graphs A, there you see hedonic and eudaimonic. And so these are the differences in the immune response between the two of them. All right. So with hedonic, having these greater pro-inflammatory, greater responses in the body that cause all of this immunity to begin to actually dysregulate. So inflammation occurring when it doesn't need to be, interferons occurring, reduction when it doesn't need to be, or actually not. So lower interferon responses and lower antibody responses. So this dysregulated immune response, what are you seeing there? The main thing that we're pointing out there regarding the numbers is that the immune responses for a hedonic individual versus a eudaimonic individual are exactly the opposite. All right then. If I have a disease, there's only one way my body is supposed to be responding, right? To help fix that disease, to kill that disease. We see individuals who focus on hedonic happiness, pleasures of the senses, their body immune response is exactly the opposite of those who are eudaimonic. All right, so let's see which one is better then, right? We already know, but let's take a look at it close up. So what are we seeing here? So these individuals were excited, right? They were excited by, they were told, there are many different ways that you can do this, but these individuals were reading tragic stories, and then they were looking at their immune response. So physical pain actually gets our body to respond in similar ways as emotional pain. And in fact, check this out. If you're feeling sad, do you know that aspirin actually can help make you feel better? And emotional pain can be, in some ways, alleviated by a remedy for a physical pain, like aspirin. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy. But that's how much alike our physical pain actually is to our emotional pain. You know it. You feel it right in your body, don't you? When somebody breaks up with you and you did not expect it, what do we say? We say it felt like a kick in the gut. Because why? Because it felt like a kick in the gut. And if we looked, we would likely, if we could measure it right at that moment in time, we would likely see brain responses that are similar to a kick in the gut. How about that? Or butterflies in the stomach. What about that? What about that? That's real. You're feeling something, aren't you? We don't say butterflies in the stomach because we've seen a butterfly at the time. No, because we literally feel something. What is that? What is it that we feel? We don't study those things, butterflies in the stomach. No, why not? Because we're studying medicine. That's the reason why. So, Let's take a close-up look at that inflammatory response. We can see hedonic individuals, which are on the left-hand side, compared to eudaimonic individuals in graph B, they're on the right-hand side. Greater pro-inflammatory response. So inflammation in these individuals after reading a story. Interferon. Did interferon kick in? Interferon kicked in for those who are eudaimonic individuals, categorized as eudaimonic individuals, but did not kick in for those individuals who were considered hedonic. And then the last one there is the antibody. So this is our body's response. This is basically, we can measure the number of antibodies that are sent out in response to, in this case, an emotional trauma. Not so much a trauma, but an emotional event, right? Emotionally negative event. All right. What happened there? It's actually a reverse response. And what does that mean? That means that immunity was suppressed. It means that not only, so normal immunity running around the body now is not responding normally. It's not responding at all. So not even running around the body. Immune system is suppressed. Not even running around the body. It's suppressed. We see that final column, what happens, the exact opposite in antibody responses, right? So when there's a problem for eudaimonic individuals, those individuals are really quite capable of having their body respond as if there's a foreign invader, which is exactly what your body needs, even when it's feeling emotional pain. Pay attention to how we get that. How do we get that body to respond? How did we get that body to respond the way we wanted it to? Eudaimonic happiness. We have to be engaged in life, and we have to have meaning and purpose. This is the reason why I'm hitting that point home so much. Right now, I'm big on engagement. Right now, I'm big on engagement, that we should be engaging in things, all right? But meaning and purpose is no less important. I think I can get you physically interested in being engaged in life. Like when I talk about my garden and planting my seeds and all of my vegetables and flowers that I've started already. I think I can easily get you excited, and my garden beds that I'm going to be building. I'm excited about it, right? Or doing whatever activities I think I can get you excited about. It's harder to get you excited about meaning and purpose, but that will come along with your activities. All right, that's all that I have for today. We're going to talk about we're going to finish talking about this hierarchy of needs because we really want to know, how do we get to those higher order needs? How do we even focus on those higher order needs? And this helps us understand how to focus on those higher order needs. Am I a healthy person? Am I healthy in the mind? Am I healthy in my body? Am I healthy in my spirit? That's what we want, right? Okay, folks, this is Dr. Annette Feravich, and I'm the teacher in the classroom. So join me tomorrow, and we will finish. We'll see where we're at. I forgot what I was going to talk about right after. Oh, self-esteem. That's where we're going with this. Our self-worth. That's where we're going. So stay tuned. We're going to finish this up, and we're moving in to feelings of self-worth. Self-esteem is part of that, but we don't want to focus on self-esteem because that's not what we need. What we need is self-worth. That's what we need. All right. Dr. Annette Feravich. You can call me Miss Annette. You can call me Dr. Annette, Dr. Feravich with the classroom, and I am the teacher. Thanks.